The 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is a box office phenomenon, but the Hollywood myth was built on a very real foundation, 𝗪𝘀 Rectory. Long before it was a film set, it was considered the most haunted house in England. In 1929, Reverend Guy Smith and his wife Mabel moved into the secluded, deteriorating manor. It was a massive, drafty property that had been isolated from the surrounding village for years. Shortly after moving in, Mabel began a routine cleaning of the house. She eventually reached the East Wing, focusing on a drawing room that remained notoriously dark, even in the middle of the day. Tucked into the corner of the room was an antique wardrobe. When Mabel pulled the heavy doors open, she found a human skull resting on the floorboards. The police were called to investigate. Their forensic report confirmed the skull was roughly a century old and belonged to a young woman, though they were unable to provide a name or a cause of death. Finding 𝗧𝗵𝗲 remains inside the walls validated the darkest rumors surrounding the property. It forced investigators to look past the Victorian facade and into the land's original records, where they uncovered a brutal execution from the year 1360. In 1360, 𝗪𝘀 was a strictly religious, isolated community. Life was dictated by medieval dogma, and the local church held absolute authority over every resident's behavior. The records describe a secret relationship between a local priest and a young nun from a nearby convent. For a time, they met in secret on the grounds where the rectory would later stand. Once the affair was discovered, the reaction from the religious authorities was swift. They viewed the romance as a deep betrayal of their sacred vows. The priest was publicly hanged in the village center. It was a rapid, visible execution intended to warn others of the price of deviance. The nun's sentence was more agonizing. She was led into a narrow alcove in the foundations of the building and watched as a stone wall was mortared into place, sealing her inside. She died slowly over a period of several days. In the absolute silence and darkness of the wall, she suffered the physiological reality of starvation and dehydration until she finally went still. That act of human cruelty transformed the location. The violent end of her life became the epicenter for centuries of reported phenomena. In 1862, the Bull family built a massive new rectory directly over that medieval site. The new building's east wing sat almost perfectly on top of the original 14th century foundations. The family reported unexplained phenomena almost immediately. Footsteps sounded in empty rooms, and shadows moved without a light source, always concentrated in the wing of the house built over the old stone. One evening, a group of local children wandered into the east wing. They stopped near a wardrobe when they saw a figure standing in the shadows, watching them. The figure was a skeletal woman in a shredded nun's habit. She wasn't walking, she was hovering just above the floor, drifting slowly toward the children before vanishing into the solid wall. The resident priest at the time was a skeptic who dismissed the children's story as a trick of the light. He lived in the rectory for 37 years, consistently denying that anything unusual was happening. That skepticism broke during his final week before retirement. While standing in the courtyard at sunset, he saw the skeletal nun standing by the bushes, staring directly at him before dissolving into the air. The figure seen for centuries was a visual record of a tragedy. The nun wasn't a monster, she was a victim, perpetually reliving the isolation of her final moments. As the reports of activity became more frequent, famous paranormal researcher Harry Price arrived. His extensive files solidified 𝗪𝘀's reputation as the most haunted location in the country. In 1939, a kerosene lamp was knocked over, starting a devastating fire that gutted the building. The ruined shell was finally demolished, leaving only the empty, scorched land behind. The land was eventually investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren. They analyzed the site's history and the intense negative energy lingering from the 1360 execution. The Warrens attempted to perform rituals on the property, hoping to grant the victim's spirit the peace she had been denied for 6 centuries. Decades later, Hollywood writers used the Warrens' case files to create a blockbuster franchise. They replaced the historical victim with a demonic king named Valak, prioritizing a supernatural villain over a human tragedy. The real horror at 𝗪𝘀 Rectory was a matter of historical record. A young woman being slowly bricked into a cold wall by her own community, left to die in the dark. That act of cruelty was the true monster of the story.